Quickly to main north. They're being chased. There's a jackal. Jackal chasing impala. Or Thompson's gazelle. What is going on there? Did you see that? There's a jackal there, everybody. And I think it was trying to get hold of an impala lamb. There. Look. There it comes. Is it a jackal? It is a jackal. Here it comes. How very successful. That was very, well, for us, not for the jackal. No, man. Sorry. There's a bit of a delay in the movement here. There he goes. Very exciting stuff. Now, I wonder, I'm just going to zoom out and just check to make sure that those antelope didn't leap into the water, where they will almost certainly be devoured. The jackal's coming down through there, clearly still on the hunt. We'll just pan across gently. There's the jackal going. You can see it top of your picture. Let's just stick out into that open area there and see what's going on there. You still see it there? Seems to be just to the right. There it goes. Now trotting away. Fascinating. Gee whiz, that was great. Let's just keep watching there. Looks like a black backed jackal. They do quite a lot of scavenging, of course. In fact, largely scavengers. This is, of course, why people spend so much time sitting at waterholes or at river sides. There we go, just disappeared now. And there on the banks of the river are the reason the topi did not try and cross. Now, Francis, you're wondering if, all the way from Israel, if jackals are strong enough to take down prey on their own. Francis, they are absolutely, especially something small like a lamb or a fawn. And so they will try and do that there. Now, what I'm trying to get at here, while another fly attacks me on the ear, is that there is a relatively small crocodile, and quite unusually in the presence of a much bigger one. Now, crocodiles are not beyond cannibalism. It is perfectly within their culture to engage in eating each other. And I wonder how it is that that little one is managing to survive next to such a behemoth, unless the behemoth has just eaten. Well, that was really fascinating. George, you're just 10 years old and you ask a very, very good question. You say, do the lions ever take the time to go into the water after their prey? Because, of course, George, perhaps you know that prey will run into water to get away from things like lions and wild dogs. The answer is probably not, George, especially if it's a large animal, and that's because, of course, a lion, while it can swim, is not very comfortable in the water. So a bit like you and I, you know that we can swim, but if something is to grab us from underneath, well, we'll get pulled under very easily. And the same goes for lions. So to have a fight with something like a buffalo or a wildebeest in the water is something that they really don't want to do, because it can do them quite a lot of damage and they could drown. So no, they don't generally go into water after their prey. That said, they can swim very well indeed. So I'm afraid I don't know if there's going to be any more action from the topi and zebra. I'm just going to the other crossing. And yeah, there's still a little bit of activity there. Roshni, you say, are the river crossings named by the Safari Live team? No, they're not. They're been named by the authorities of the Mara Triangle, and that's why we have Dusty Crossing, Main North, Main South. There is a Picnic Crossing as well, and then there's a Chitwa Crossing, which is way north in the triangle, but we haven't got a camera there just yet. And then there's, of course, Cul-de-sac Crossing, which we don't have a picture of right now either. So that's what's going on here. All right, now I believe Scott is at the river. I think it looks like he's at Main North.
Hello, and yes, we are at Main North Crossing. The camera's actually somewhere just up ahead of us, and basically the animals like to cross where you can see all those rapids, and the camera's somewhere... Ah, well done, Ferg. There's the camera. There's a hippo snorting in the background. And like I said, they crossed across that area of rapids, and that camera is just so incredibly well positioned. The last time we had a crossing coming across there, the zebra were running straight down the barrel, so some wonderful views. And then the other camera, Main South, is a little bit further downstream from us, about 200 meters. But we're not going to see that from here. What we are going to be able to see is this yellow-billed stork looking for a meal. And as you can see, it slowly probes with an open beak, and as soon as it feels any little bit of movement, with incredible speed, it will clamp shut. Quite a bizarre looking bird with that bald head. And let's just spend some time here. I know yesterday, I think it was, there was a discussion on what fish occur in the Mara. Oh no, just moving from A to B. And this will be a good way to try and work out which fish there are. We'll get the birds to do the fishing for us. Although, don't go behind the bank, thank you. Just there's okay, not ideal, a little bit to the right. But if it does clamp onto something, you'll see how it also uses its feet, not as much as the hummerkops do. Hummerkops are incredible hunters, and they use their little toes to help them detect any prey. You saw the stork doing it kind of once or twice there, but it's not a go-to move. Oh, did it catch something? No, it obviously felt a fish, but it wasn't quick enough there. But considering where it is now, I think we either have to reposition or call it a day. So while we do that, we are gonna send you over to Taylor, who has a king on the castle. Maybe a queen.
So we've got this kudu, this young male kudu, who's standing up on top of a termite mound, as you can see. And I think it's very clever of this animal. He's using it as an advantage point, looking down towards the water's edge, because we're sitting at Treehouse Dam now. Mr. and Mrs. Egyptian geese are not happy. They're moving up onto the dam wall. They're making, oh, they're just there. They're making all sorts of noises. I don't know what's got them so riled up. Now, I wanted to show you, but it has run away now. We'll have to wait for it to come back. Seen as though yesterday, was it yesterday? No, the day before. Let me see if we can find it again. There was the little three-banded plover that had a nest. Mr. and Mrs. Black Smith Lapwing, which are down that way, have successfully hatched a chick. But the chick has run around the corner, and I think it ran there because a turtle dove came in for a drink. And as you know, the Black Smith Lapwings are not necessarily the friendliest of birds, especially when they've got a young chick around, so they chased the turtle dove away, that poor dove. There's the other one that's just coming down. So maybe that little one comes running back here, but it is so sweet. It is so small and so fluffy, of course, with all its little down feathers, and hopefully it comes back. Now I'm trying to think, we were here yesterday and we didn't see it. So I wonder if it maybe just didn't hatch at some point. It was so tiny, but oh well, we'll keep an eye on it. It's not coming back around the corner, so we won't hang around here. We'll go somewhere else. Bye, kudu. Better be careful. Shongile used to like that termite mound, though Shongile is a little bit small to take on a kudu just yet. Haven't quite decided what we're going to do now. We might just have another quick look at Twin Dams, and then we'll eventually get towards Chitwa. But again, it's still quite a way to go, and I like to get to Chitwa just as the light turns golden, because that's when the hippos start to get quite excited. So that's the idea. So we'll just keep bumbling along. Maybe. What do you think we're going to see next, Craig? What a bird? Although I'm not too sure about a bird today. The birds have been on holiday. Craig's also not sure as to what we might see. We'll definitely see lots of shrubs along the way. Lots of pushed over silver cluster leaves. Lots and lots of plants out here that are all losing their leaves now. Okay, well, we'll start heading back towards Twin Dams, give it one last look around there, and then we'll go towards Chitwa. And while we do that, Scott has managed to not find a hippo that's alive, but some of its remains.
So, there's a bit of a landmark here at Main North, a hippo skull. I don't think it's quite as impressive as James's skull in the migration control room, yet it's good to just get one's bearings from that, and next time James is on the river cam, you'll be able to kind of work out where we are in relation to that. So a little bit downstream of the camera, a raft of hippos are readying themselves for a night out grazing. They're just taking it easy. And the topi and zebra that were here before have obviously moved off. I can just see one on the horizon that Ferg's busy zooming in on, maybe looking back at the rest of the herd saying, what happened to our plans? Aren't we going to cross? Doesn't seem like it this afternoon. Hello to Jane. You would like to know if Eland will also cross. Oh, James Richard, sorry, I got your name wrong. Good to have you with us, James. As far as I've been told, eland will cross with other species, but they don't do it very, very commonly. So it's not that they have their own crossing points or do it at separate times. They're just less likely to do it. And I guess their populations aren't as numerous as the other species, so it may just appear that they don't cross as much as others simply because there are less of them. So I'm not sure. We haven't been able to manage to capture topi crossing yet on the river cams, nor eland. So that'll be cool to see. What other species have I been told? I'm told also Grant's gazelle will also cross from time to time, but again, they're just not a numerous species here. So those are a few species that we still need to document crossing. And as we discussed a little bit earlier, what will be fascinating to know is where the crossings occur at night. So looking forward to busting these myths with you guys. Very marvelous. Well, as we depart from the river, you are going to remain there. However, you'll be jumping across with James.
Yes, well, here we are. We find ourselves at the same place again, sitting with a grey heron. The banging in the background is a carpenter hard at work here in the studio. He has now ceased his banging until we go off air again. That is the grey heron, same one that you will find in South Africa, and doing much the same as the stork you were watching with Scott, fishing. Well, this one's not fishing, is he? He's just sort of giving himself a bit of a spruce before the evening. Perhaps he's got a hot date. Now, I'll just show you where Scott was. Let me zoom out and move across at the same time. And see if we can't... Oh, that's the hippo skull you can see at the top there that Scott was looking at. And we'll just see if we can't give you an idea as to where Scott was. And he's moved off. Oh no, he hasn't. I'll show you where he is. There are whole rafts of hippopotami, and there he is behind a stick. Fascinating. There, waving at us now, Fergus, Scott, and Eminem. Right, let's go back out. Now, I'll tell you the one thing that I'm seriously lacking in knowledge of this area is the plants. And I would very much like to go and spend some time on foot discovering the different plants of the area, and I suppose we will eventually get the opportunity to do that. Just scanning once more to see if I can't find a few of those topi and zebra, but I don't see any of that. Now, let's say, you say once the wildebeest mow the lawn, will we see more species such as serval and animals that hide in the grass? If we go to the mountain cam, just for the sake of not just listening to my voice waffling away at you, the answer is not really, because they live in the long grass because they want to live in the long grass, and therefore they will find long grass as often as possible, things like serval. But what's interesting is that straw-like grass, once it goes to straw, so say in 2 or 3 weeks' time, when that long grass, the long red oat grass, has gone to straw, what you're going to find, Liz, is that it becomes almost inedible, and so the wildebeest are not going to chop that stuff down. The zebra and buffalo will cut that a bit first before the wildebeest come in and take the leaf material underneath. And so you'll find that, you know, those huge big stands with straw-like grass will eventually become inedible, and they will remain like that. They won't change into these very fine lawns that we're looking at now. There are some giraffe. Oh, they're wonderful. Isn't that lovely? With them having a pleasant time there under the trees. We do lose a little bit of clarity when we zoom in too far, so we'll just stay out a bit. One of them has climbed all the way up onto the hill. Hello, Sharan. You are a new viewer asking if we answer questions live. Well, Sharan, there's your answer. I'm answering your question, and I'm live. So, yes, we do. And your other good question is, when are we going to do safaris from India? Well, we did a brief sortie to India earlier this year to see if it would be possible. I think it probably will be possible. There are quite a few difficulties that we have to overcome before broadcasting out of India is possible. The one big thing is that there is absolutely no off-road driving permitted there. And if you're going to follow tigers and sloth bears and sicker deer and that sort of stuff, you need to be able to get relatively close to them. Now, the reason they have no off-road driving there is because of the numbers of people that go in and out of the wonderful parks that they have in India. And so we would have to find a way to negotiate a way for us to go off-road. Otherwise, it would become extremely difficult. So that's one of the challenges. They've also got a very regulated system of routes so that the impact on the parks and on the animals is very closely monitored and very carefully maintained. And that, of course, makes it difficult for us. We need to go wherever we need to go. So I imagine that one day we will overcome those problems because the wildlife of India is just too spectacular. Tigers and sloth bears and all manner of other fantastic animals. Now, Judy H., you very cleverly have seen that there is a do not follow message on Scott's car, and you want to know why that is. I think these people are with the Agama pride, but I don't think we're going to see them from up here. Judy H., the reason is that we go off-road. We have permission to go off-road in some areas, not all areas, and what we don't want is for people to follow us off-road. So the researchers have got similar things. Film crews often have the same things. They've paid for the privilege of going off-road. I wonder if there's a lion down there below the trees. I'm not sure. And so that's why we have don't follow. We don't want people to follow us when we go off-road. I think that, is that a lion or is it a zebra? I think it's a zebra. Okay, let's head across to Taylor McAdee. She is in the Sabi Sands heading into the glistening golden setting sun.
Very sadly, Chitwa Dam is not open for us this afternoon. There must have been some late arrivals, and they're obviously enjoying the afternoon out on the deck, or they're busy setting up a sundowner. I'm not sure which one it is just yet. I just got told that the dam is closed, which is a bit of a pity. It would have been very nice to have, of course, go there. At least we would have had some hippos and some cool birds to look at. I was actually looking forward to finding that green-backed heron. I quite enjoy them. So I thought while we're here, getting hooked on trees, we might as well check out Gwen's old den, which is just off Cheetah Line, but this road is very overgrown now. Let's go this way around. Wee, hold on, Craig. It's a bumpy ride. So we'll quickly go and check that. And then we'll just start driving all of the roads again. And hopefully something will pop out on the ones that we've already driven this afternoon. Maybe we'll have to go back and try and find that little Black Smith Lapwing chick. Wait, my goodness. This road. Craig, hang on, we might actually have to go into low range here. There's a huge drop off on the side, some serious erosion, so we'll try not, well, we're going to have to go in it now, but we'll choose to go down instead of just sliding into it. Wait, and I need to watch what I'm doing. It's an interesting road, this. And then we just tear it. Sorry. Wait, sorry, Craig, hold on. There we go, there's the entrance. That used to be an active den. But unfortunately you can see that there's absolutely no activity there whatsoever. Very fine soil. The only ones that seem to be moving around here are a pair of Natal spurfowls that are about to disappear just to the right. There they go. They're just moving around over the top of that termite mound. But no one is home. Maybe you'll find lizards and snakes and tortoises perhaps living inside that den, but there's no big mammals living in there. Maybe the odd rodent too. No birds up here. Where are we going to go now, Craig? You can decide where we can go. Where would you like to go? Wildebeest Dam. Again, okay. Waiting for Craig. Craig says Wildebeest Dam. We shall go to Wildebeest Dam then. That'll be the dam that we go and visit. Maybe the wildebeest will be down there. Wouldn't that be nice? I think we might actually do a Mulwati cruise and get there, because this is the time that the birds start settling down. So maybe we get some cool birds along the way. Right. And I think we're going to watch the sunset tonight. That's going to be on the card, so we need to find ourselves in a good spot. I'm going to send you back across, though, to Kenya, to Scott, and I wonder if he knows if there's any lions or cheetah or things about today on the open plains.
So, I must say I'm very jealous of all of Taylor's updates, all the places she's taking you. Obviously, well, for some of you may not know, I did spend 2 years traversing around Djuma, getting to know all the wonderful spots. So every time we hear updates of where she's going, it brings back wonderful memories of all the animals and sightings that a lot of us shared together, especially the Mulwati River Cruise. So I hope she takes you on that adventure. If you haven't been on one before, it's worth sticking around for. It's a beautiful riverbed. You may be wondering why we stopped here. We have been stumped by a stump at 10 o'clock. A little bit to the right. That's the... Looks like a big owl type bird, to be fair. But I wasn't exactly sure what it was. It was just a bit of a strange shape that caught my attention. And there is a lesson to be learned there, because often when searching for animals out on safari, you've got to be looking more for strange shapes and obscurities than the actual animal itself, because they tend to blend in so well, and that's a kind of example thereof. Now, I'm told that Scar, the male lion we've been discussing a little bit, enjoys sleeping under this gardenia tree to our right. It's one of his local hangouts, but thanks to Mark Hayes' updates, he is not under that tree. He is with his brother on the other side of the river, eating a pied pony. Very tasty. The only time I've actually seen him, he was just up this little water course lying underneath those two gardenias that are next to one another over there. Well done, Ferg. So that's the only glimpse I've got of him so far. I think he was trying to romance one of the local ladies without much success. Other guides in the area, oh, beautiful, Ferg. Working your magic while we're on the move. Oh! You knew that was going to happen, didn't you? Mm-hmm. Well done. Beautiful. So what I was told the morning I did see Scar about a week ago is that he was seen with the lioness, and she did a runner on him, and he was running around wildly trying to work out where she was hiding with no success. Let's see if there's anything slinking about here. Anything worth investigating, hanging around for? No hummerkops hunting. A beautiful view off into the distance. Ah, there's a topi. Hello to Eric. You would like to know if these are acacia trees rather, dotted off in the background. And there are one or two acacias, but the majority of these are balanites. That one there, the big one on the right of your screen, is a balanites. I'm fairly certain it's called an Egyptian date, is the official name. But I do stand to be corrected on that. I really do need to polish up on my birds and bushes, as I have become somewhat rusty. My previous employment as a camp manager for a year has not put me in good stead to be taking you on safari, so I've got some homework to do, which I'm really looking forward to. It's so great to be back out, having the wind in my hair, my wig, and have you guys all on board with us exploring the African wilderness. And I've got good news. Taylor has officially invited you onto the Mulwati cruise. Take your shoes off, put your feet up and enjoy.
Guess where we are? It's very shaded in here, lots and lots of trees. If you guessed the Mulwati, you're correct. I just actually bumped into, let me just quickly watch where I'm going so I don't knock Craig out. Go-kart turn. There we go. I was driving now, I'm just coming back through the Mulwati, and I bumped into Davy from Elephant Plains, and he said that they don't seem to be having too much luck on their side either, which is quite interesting because we definitely don't have any leopard tracks coming this way. And so they're actually quite close to the road towards Triple M. So I think we'll go out here, we'll quickly go have a look at Wildebeest Dam, definitely going to stop there, and then we're going to start going up and down and wait for those lines to come across. It's got cool very quickly this evening. You can see we put jackets on. I might even have to put another layer on this evening. It wasn't particularly warm today either. It was a nice day, and then hopefully for the last little bit of the show, the coolness will come back across. Let's go back across to the land of lots of water, seen as though there's a lack of water in the Mulwati. I'll send you back to James.
We are just I'm trying to make a nice picture, not so much from that one, but from Main South, but there appears to be a little bit of a glitch. Ah, there we go. Can we go there, Kirst? Main South, there we are, that's Main South, beautiful. Look how pretty my picture is there. I'm trying to underexpose it so that the rays from the sun will show themselves. I'll just expose and show you the difference that makes. No, it's on an auto setting, it won't let me do it. It's a little bit like that microscope of ours. There we go, that's what I wanted to do. Isn't that pretty? And now we'll move across and we'll allow it to automatically brighten up. Now, Joyce, you say, do we need to run power lines to the river? Joyce, that is a very practical question that you have asked, and one that we wrestled with ourselves for many months before we came here. The answer is yes, we have run enormous power lines overhead that we're just being very clever not to show you. No, Joyce, we don't have to run power lines. We are, as you have guessed, totally solar powered on these cameras. So that's great. We do have to go and do a bit of maintenance from time to time, and if there is a spectacular sighting, well, we might have to go down and fetch a card or two, which has recorded the footage. But otherwise, no, we don't have to do anything to them. They're rather sort of self-maintaining. I am a little bit worried that they're quite easy to spot, and some I don't know, injudicious tourists might jump out the car and say, what's this, kick it, and, you know, push it into the water or something like that. But so far we've been quite lucky with that. Not a lot of bird life going on here. Let's go all the way across and see if we can't find something there. Now, Aaron in New Zealand, you're wondering about which stork species has got the largest population in this area. I do apologise for doing that. I just can't help myself. Wait 1 second, I'll find out for you, Aaron. I'm looking at a list of birds as we speak. Right, we get white storks, black storks, abdomen storks, woolly neck storks, saddle-billed storks, marabou storks, African open-billed storks, and yellow-billed storks. I would suspect quite strongly, Aaron, that when the abdomen storks or the African open-billed storks come through this area, they would make up the greatest numbers because, of course, they flock. We're getting a lot of break-up on that picture, which is a bit irritating. Let's go back to the sky, I think, if we can, and I just want to show you how, as the sun begins to set, you can see it, the shadows lengthening there and passing down towards the east. We're looking pretty much due east now. You can see there how the wind starts to pick up, especially up here on the low escarpment where we find ourselves. Next to Agama Mara. And that is, well, that's the dining room of the Agama Mara staff village, if you were interested. Let's go back into the bush, shall we? I want to go back down into the clearings here because it did look a little bit to me like the Agama Pride might be thinking about doing some hunting around here, especially with that concentration of cars that there was a little bit down from this position. You see a lot of standing water. We've had good rains here. Now that's excellent news, of course, for our migration story. We're hoping that that will attract the wildebeest herds up here. Now those lions are in and around here somewhere, almost certainly. And Roshni, you say you love the name Ulalalalalalo. Well, we also like it, especially when we get it right, which is often very difficult. Now, you have heard Brent and Scott and me and various others talking about the lugger. Sorry, I'm being attacked by flies again. I'm going to tell you about that once Scott has showed you his canid.
So hopefully this jackal knows something that we don't know, as we are heading in the same direction. And it's been so cool having a few glimpses of these small little carnivores sneaking in amongst hyenas and lions, stealing scraps. They're incredibly crafty little animals, and because they are small, they are incredibly quick. So they can avoid the danger of hyenas and lions. I'm sure from time to time they get unlucky. I've actually seen an interesting fight between vultures and these jackals. A vulture and a jackal is quite an even match, and they were both biting at one another. And in one situation, I'm not sure where it was that was documented, a jackal actually managed to kill a vulture. So some interesting battles do happen with the carnivores here. I wonder where its mate is. They do live in pairs. I'm sure it's probably not too far from here, unless this is just a loner looking for a mate. Now, before we move forward and try and get you some better visuals of it, I would like to take this opportunity to show you a beautiful scene of some giraffe off to our left, looking into the golden haze of the sunset. And if Ferg just zooms in a bit, then we will be able to see these giraffes. Where are they? Ah, there they are. Quite a hazy afternoon, lots of dust in the air, but creating quite a dramatic scene. Now, we were driving just on this edge of that grove of big trees a little bit earlier, when we were heading south. Now we are heading north, back to camp. Just to give you an idea of where we were all cruising a little bit earlier. Now this is interesting. This giraffe evidently has found a small bush that it's nibbling on. Unless, of course, it's trying to... No, it does certainly seem to be attacking a small bush. Unless, of course, it's trying to eat bones. Giraffe are quite well known to chew on bones to get calcium. But that is just a small shrub it is feeding on. Obviously, for giraffe, they have to be a little bit creative in this large open savanna, as there's not as much eye-level food as there is in the Sabi Sands, for example. Wonderful, and there's quite a few also dotted off to the right of it, quite a large journey. Some Thompson's gazelle in the foreground. Marvelous. We shall venture forth. Let's see if we can get up towards this jackal and get you some closer views of it. This is a black backed jackal. You get a number of different species of jackal throughout Africa. Hello to Roshni. You would like to know what the difference is between a jackal and a fox, and I'm not entirely sure. I don't think there is a huge difference, to be honest. It's teamed up with its partner, so we'll be able to get you views of two of them. I think it's just it comes down to a naming thing. I'm fairly certain they are part of the same family. So this could be called a black-backed fox. I think they've just been named jackal, but it doesn't mean that they are not part of the same family, as far as I am aware. The other one sadly disappeared off into the grass here. There it goes, skulking off. It's also important to note that these animals don't only rely on scavenging, they can hunt. I've seen one, or two actually, a pair of them hunting a Thompson's gazelle in an area further north of here, also along the Rift Valley, called Naivasha. And they chased this Thompson's gazelle around. It was at night, and this couple of jackal would take turns relaying, chasing this Thompson's gazelle from time to time. There's a beautiful scene over here, so as I talk, rather take a look at this. And they chased this poor Thompson's gazelle for about 20 minutes until eventually it tired. And where it collapsed, it was right outside a bat-eared fox den. And sadly, one of the bat-eared foxes poked its head out, one of the pups. And it too, along with the Thompson's gazelle, got nabbed by the jackal. It was an incredibly distressing scene, because a bat-eared fox, even when it's fully grown, is one of the cutest animals you can imagine. They do occur here, so we will be able to show you them at some point. I'm not sure if any of the other guides have managed to show you them, but I certainly haven't. Well, there is an urgent bulletin from the Sabi Sands. It sounds like they have a migration of their own. Off you go.
Again, everyone, I'm just repositioning. The wildebeest are too quick for me. They were just drinking at the dam. We had Vuyatela Dam, so it seems as though Craig is going to decide where we go from now on. He's making good decisions when it comes to finding the animals. I'm going to just go up a little bit further. You might be able to see Gallagher Lodge just in front of us too. Hi, wildebeest. Isn't this funny? This morning we ended off down here and the wildebeest were going in the opposite direction. You might also be able to hear a squirrel shouting in camp. And now they've come back, they've had another drink of water, and I'm sure that they're going to head up towards Quarantine, the big open plains, where they will most likely rest for the evening along with a couple of impala. Squirrel, what are you shouting about? Maybe he's just happy that the day has come to an end. Perhaps that's what it's chanting. But you can see the wildebeest are now moving around. Just trying to see if anything else is going to give an alarm call, if it's just the squirrel overreacting. They sometimes do this. Maybe there's a snake in camp, or a raptor sitting up in one of the trees, but the wildebeest don't seem too bothered. All the impala that are also around here, they haven't made one distress call whatsoever. Oh, that's quite nice. That's a two-headed wildebeest, and they're both grooming themselves. Look how great that is. Well, of course, it's not. It's just two wildebeest standing together. But it's quite peaceful out here. It's a pity. I was hoping we were going to hear a leopard soaring or perhaps a lion roaring, giving away their position. And like I said, that's just Gallagher Lodge that you're starting to see now. But no guests here. Everybody is out on a safari. There are some lions in Buffelshoek somewhere, but I don't know which lions they are. They haven't said on the radio yet. I wonder if it isn't that mating pair that was seen this morning. And then perhaps that will be one of the Ngoma lionesses and a Birmingham boy, I presume, or especially if there's a male around. It will have to be a Birmingham boy. Any other lions that would be coming on the property that don't belong to that coalition would find themselves in trouble. Look at that wildebeest with all the oxpeckers on its back. Now, of course, it's going to go and hide behind the other wildebeest. Can everybody shuffle around? Oh, thank you. It must have heard me, although it's lost a couple of passengers. There were a whole lot. Isn't it amazing how some... There we go. It's coming at the back again. Why has that wildebeest got so many more oxpeckers? Do you think it has more parasites? Or do you think it's just a family and all congregating on one back? Oh no, that one's changed sides now. It's joined another party. They're such fascinating little birds, those oxpeckers. I'm really hoping that once the buffalo do come back, we'll start to see not the red-billed oxpeckers, of course they'll be around, but the yellow-billed oxpeckers. It would be really, really nice to have a look at them. Shame, wildebeest, are you missing your zebra friends? Luckily, this area has been heavily grazed by the zebras already, so it's not too bad. Now, Paula, you're wondering how large can a wildebeest get? Even though they're quite tall, I'm going to try and put it in perspective to you. They're not quite as heavy as a zebra, I would say. Maybe they're just slightly less, but they're about the same size of a horse-cross pony, so something in between. I'd say they don't get much taller than about 15 hands. They're quite big when you're on ground with them, and they must weigh anywhere between females, probably around 200 odd kilograms, and the males, especially when they're in summer and we've had all that lovely rain and they put on quite a bit of weight with that green grass. I reckon that the boys could get up to about 400 kilograms, so what's that, 850 pounds, somewhere around there. Not anywhere near the size of a buffalo. Remember, buffalo bulls can get almost up to just slightly less than a ton. I'd say about 800 kilograms. They're massive, so they don't have the sort of broad shoulders and the thick neck like a buffalo has, but they're definitely not short. They're quite tall animals, and you don't realize it when you're in the car because you're sitting so high up, and remember the camera is positioned quite high up on the vehicle too. But as soon as you're down on foot, even something like an impala can actually be quite intimidating. And you have to be careful of these animals, even the ones that just eat vegetation. We know you have to be cautious of rhinos and buffalo and elephants and hippos, but wildebeest kill people every single year too. So you must be very cautious. And we're talking about ostriches quite a bit this morning too, seeing as though we saw their tracks. Sadly, no reports of the ostrich. They are particularly dangerous. You need to be very, very careful and just respect them, because as soon as they feel pressured and they feel as though their only option is to fight, they will. Now we're going to try and head around and see if we can't get a nice sunset shot, and I think it's time to go towards Triple M and search for the lions. Hopefully they come across. But let's go across to James. He's looking at something in the distance.
I am looking at something something here in the distance. We just saw a lion walk underneath that tree that you can see there, just where the car is turning. And interestingly, she's gone down into the lugger. Now, lugger is a word that is used here as frequently as the word drainage line is used back at Djuma. And the lugger, of course, for many of you won't know what we're talking about. Well, that is one there. You can see the gully. Now, it is that gully in which the Agama pride has been keeping their cubs, all 13 of them, and latterly just the youngest 6. But it is in that gully where they spend the majority of their time. And the lionesses hunt in and around this area. I've seen them in those 2 trees that you can see in the middle of your picture there. And somewhere down amongst that, what can only be described as, well, crowd, the lions are. Now, this is why, of course, we put do not follow on our cars, as you asked. It is because we do not want this number of vehicles to be following us off-road. None of these vehicles are allowed to go off-road, which means that the lions remain, although it might look like they're being harassed by that many cars, it's simply not possible for the harassment to take place because they are simply not allowed to drive off-road. So it's okay for the lions. And they tend to sit on both sides of this laga or gully, which means, and you cannot cross it in a car, which means that they can get away from the cars as soon as they might want to. Now, what I want to spot here, of course, is Scott Dyson. Now, Kirsten says I was going to tell you a story about the Ulalolo or something before I linked to Scott, and she's absolutely right, but I cannot for the life of me. Oh, no, that was the story. It was the story of this lugger. Brent and Jamie and Scott and I used the term lugger. That's right, and that's what I've just told you now. Now, I will also tell you that Scott was looking at a jackal, and you were asked about whether they're the same as foxes. Foxes tend to come from slightly different genuses, or the genera. That's a really terrible way of putting it. Jackals belong to the genus Canis, which of course includes the wolf, and indeed it includes not only the wolf, but the jackals and the domestic dog. But foxes do not belong to the genus Canis generally, in fact, I think exclusively, and I think you'll probably find that foxes belong to a number of different genera. The other canid that does not belong, of course, to the genus Canis is Lycaon pictus. That, of course, is the wild dog. Sabu, you say, do we get wolves in Africa? It depends entirely on your definition of a wolf. Now, just while I explain this, watch those zebra. They're coming up the hill now. They're all moving up the hill because darkness is starting to fall. And that means that these chaps who are hunted mercilessly by the Agama pride wish to be up on the hill around my tent this evening rather than lurking down there on the Mara floor. Now, strictly speaking, yes, you can get a grey wolf up in the Atlas Mountains. It's the same species as the European wolf as far as I'm aware. But also, you get something called a simian wolf. And what's interesting is that the simian wolf, although it's not in fact a wolf, there's the zebra having a roll, I see that, it's not really a wolf, it's more a jackal, you see. And it lives up in the Ethiopian highlands, and of course it is the rarest, what am I going with? Rarest carnivore in all of Africa, which is why despite the rarity of the African wild dog, we always have to say it's the second rarest. So the African golden wolf is the wolf that I'm talking about, and it is actually not Canis lupus. I thought it was Canis lupus. It is not. It is called Canis anthus, and as far as I remember, it is found up in North Africa. Yes, you'll find in the Atlas Mountains up north of the Sahara. There are various different subspecies, but I also suspect that you would find that it's not entirely unlikely to hybridize with jackals. And I can see, actually, as I'm just flicking through this text that I'm looking at now, it has hybridized with a number of either the golden jackal, and in fact, probably could hybridize with the grey wolf as well. So that's quite interesting. It looks like a wolf. It looks like halfway between a wolf and the jackal. Now, let's just see how the nuclear family is doing. They seem to be fine. They're about to have some friends over for supper, the zebra. And so while they prepare their dinner, there's the little calf. Sorry, there you can see the little calf. You can see my little nuclear family homeschooling. Very brave they are. Let's head back to Scott Dyson, who must, of course, make his way up that very road very shortly.
So yes, we are not too far away from our driveway, probably another 2 kilometers. And the sun has just dipped below a bank of clouds above the Olololo escarpment. There we have it. The beauty and splendor continues. And I'm told you may have got a long distance visual of the Agama lioness lurking in their favorite lugger, and that mountain cam sure is a welcome added set of eyes for us, especially James in the control. A big thanks to all of you who sent through information regarding jackals and wolves and foxes, and also thanks to James for putting some further clarity on that matter. What has this vehicle up ahead seen? They've stopped, they're pointing. It could just be an old hippo carcass. Some of you were lucky enough to see hyenas having a really good time feeding on the scraps of a hippo that died in this little riverbed. That all happened before I arrived here. And we'll give you a quick glimpse now of what remains. Not too much, and fascinating how such a large carcass can be totally dismembered. There's just the spine and the ribs that we can see. Good, well, we are blocking the way of this bridge. It's a one-way bridge, so we shall continue. Jumbasana, Mzuri. And the skull's managed to make its way up onto the bank here to our right. There's the skull, so your second hippo skull for the afternoon. Good. Jumbasana, habari ya kila kitu? Aya, hello. It's wonderful, everyone's very friendly out here, and it's something I've found in most wilderness areas I've worked at. There's a great sense of teamwork, and Kenyan people as a general rule are incredibly hospitable. It's a wonderful place to be, and everyone certainly has been making us feel very at home here. Alrighty then, well, we're going to continue heading on towards home, and while we do so, we are going to send you back to Taylor.
I'm going to need your help now this afternoon. I got something in my eye when we were at the Wildebeest, and it doesn't want to come out, whatever it is. So I'm one-eyed Taylor today. Maybe I should go back and go get a pirate hat and perhaps a patch. So Craig, you're going to have to be my extra pairs of eyes this afternoon, because I feel like I'm going to miss many things on the left hand side, but we'll give it a bash. I think what we're going to do now is we're on Vuyatela access. It's a good road to check this time. The sun is just starting to set, and as we get up a little bit further, we'll see if we can have a look at the remnants of the sunset. The skies are very much on fire tonight. It's very pretty actually, but you just need to get all the way up and around a couple more bends, and then we should have a better clear view. And it's got very cold. I think we're going to have to add another layer. Oh, let's not put the scarf on with the thorns in it. Make sure they're all gone. It's going to look beautiful. We've just got to go a little bit further along, and then we'll take a look and you'll see how pretty it is. It's just a bit dense with trees at the moment, so it's almost impossible to sort of show you exactly what we were seeing just from a little while ago, just back there. But then we had the power lines in the shot, so it wasn't quite nice. We'll avoid the power lines. Hang on, who's on the road here? Is a hornbill. Don't fly away, don't fly away, don't fly away. There's a red-billed hornbill just on the ground. I think it is wanting to have a dust bath. It's all fluffed out, and it looks like the sand on the road was slightly disturbed. Let's see if it is going to demonstrate for us. Yes, there we go. Loosening the soil with their beak, almost just as an elephant would loosen the soil with its trunk and with its feet too. Yeah, not dust bathing for long enough. Okay, fine, bird, we'll show everyone the sunset then. Be like that. I think I've had all my luck with the animals. I have been particularly lucky over the last couple of days in terms of seeing cats and great elephants sort of streak as well. I promise we're getting to the sunset. It's not going to be like this morning when it took me about 3 hours to get to the Hyena Den. because just as we go up and around the corner, it sort of levels out. It's going to be, oh wow, I can see the sunset again. It's so beautiful. I'm going to have to put my foot down, otherwise we're going to miss it completely. That's the thing about the sun, is that it waits for nobody. Here we go. Oh, this is going to be amazing. Now, a question from Machine Gun Nest, and you're wondering if the hardy-dar, or is it true that the hardy-dar is the loudest bird in the bush? No, I disagree. I reckon it's between Ali and I. No, I don't know actually who's the loudest bird. There's a couple of contenders. Take a look at this actually. It's so nice. You can see a bit of the Drakensberg Mountains. Actually, I'll go forward for you, Craig, so we can get more of the mountains. And then the last of the red glow from the sun. Very, very pretty, of course. So, Machine Gun Nest, sure, definitely the hardy-dar ibis is a contender. This trumpeter hornbill is another one that sounds like a baby crying. Isn't that very pretty? Those crested francolins that are calling now, Egyptian geese, they're all pretty loud birds. So, I don't know, should we do a little poll or something? Maybe amongst yourselves you can decide, and then we can sort of do a tally or something. Who do you think is the loudest bird in the bush? And you can use the birds from the Mara too. I don't know the birds in the Mara too well just yet. You can hashtag Safari Live with who you think is the loudest bird. Isn't that so pretty though? I can hear the tractors. It sounds like they're actually pumping water not too far away here, so they must be putting out some more of the fires. Okay, now we need to go towards One-Eyed Pan, which is not on our property. It's on Simbambili, but it's very close to Triple M, and that's where Darby says those lions are laying. They're laying between One-Eyed Pan and Triple M. So it's the time that they start to wake up. Umpire, you've actually said that you think the loudest bird is perhaps the go-away bird. Yes, that's another contender, most certainly. I'm also trying to think now. Craig, what do you think the loudest bird in the bush is? Do you think the francolins? Craig says the crested francolins make quite a bit of noise. I'm going to go with the trumpeter hornbill. And maybe we can ask Scott and James too what they think is the loudest bird in the bush. But I think I'm going to go with the trumpeter hornbill. I know those hardy-dars are so pesky and so loud as well. But I just feel like if you put hardy-dar versus trumpeter hornbill, I think trumpeter hornbill could also get most annoying too. But they're very interesting birds to sit and watch, so I prefer watching them. But I definitely don't enjoy the sound of their call. How does it go again? I'm trying to remember what the trumpeter hornbill sounds like. It's terrible, absolutely terrible. Imagine listening to that all the time, especially when you've got fig trees above your house. Not pleasant. Not pleasant at all. I can smell quite a bit of smoke now, so I wonder if it is smoldering. But we're going to go back to Scott now, and I think Scott's going to have to do his best trumpeter hornbill call as well, and then we'll find out from him who he thinks is the loudest bird in the bush.
So, Taylor, my loudest bird is probably the woodlands kingfisher, and it's got more of a shrill call than a deep, well, it is loud, but it's more of a shrill call, and I will have to impersonate it for you. It's nothing like the real thing, but it goes something like this. Tick, brrr, kind of. And for any of you who are new to Safari Live, you can enjoy the prospects of seeing them in the summer months in Djuma. They're a very beautiful bird, and their calls dominate the airwaves. A wonderful call of the Sabi Sands summer. Well, this is the driveway home. Let me actually stop here because Ferg will be able to give you a good idea of where exactly we go from here, as there's a vehicle on the road traveling up now. So it obviously squiggles up here, and then it bends to the left, and then it bends to the right, kind of on that crest there, and then it bends to the left where that vehicle's going up. And then we go through one more valley. Once the vehicle reaches the top of that hill, there's a little ranger's post there. You can see the roof of it. And then we drop into that valley that you can see now before heading up to our camp, which was just on the left. There's our camp, and I'm told James is spying on us from behind that window that you can see. It's been great to have you all on with me. Goodbye. Over to James.
I have been spying on him. How did he know? There, I'm looking. He's waving. He's late. He's going to be beaten senseless by the guard at the gate. Oh, well, let's hope Eminem on the back here can protect him as he goes. Here you can see the puff of smoke from that. Wow. Goodness gracious, that is quite a trail of smoke. I wonder if Scott realizes that he's on fire. He's not really on fire, of course. Now, while we watch him move, there was a question about research done in the Mara, and that comes from Tony. Tony, there's a lot of research done in the Mara, and the chaps that we've had the most help from basically belong to two projects funded by the Kenya Wildlife Trust, and, well, funded by various sources, but they're set up by the Kenya Wildlife Trust. And they are the Mara Lion Project and the Mara Cheetah Project. And guess what they study, Tony? That's right, lions and cheetah here in the Mara. And they do a phenomenal amount of work. The two people who run it, Nick and Femke, are both Oxbridge educated, as far as I'm aware, or certainly Femke is. Nick may have been Harvard, but they're seriously well thought of, well reviewed and well published. And if you ever want to know any more about the research that they do, please do head across to Mara Lions or Mara Cheetahs on Facebook. That's the best place that you'll find them. Now, my cameras have just turned off, because I think the Vosmeister, can we call him that? That's a bit cringy, isn't it? Alex Vos has turned them off because he's probably set them to turn off. Let me just turn them on again. There we go. Okay, good. Right, so it's Mara Lions and Mara Cheetahs. One of them has a website that functions, the other one doesn't. And so find them on Facebook. That's the best place to find them. We get a lot of our information from them, and we're hoping to bring them into the studio at some stage, and we can have an interview with them and chat about what they do. And you can get involved in their research, either through funding or through just making people aware about the valuable stuff that they do. So they are the people from whom we take most of our information at the moment. Let's head across. Well, let me just quickly show you. This little panel here is how I control the cameras. It's how I'm following Scott as he comes up the river. There's a little joystick, road, burning an astonishing amount of oil and diesel. So that's what we use there. Then we push the little numbers and we go across to the other cameras. So let us head across now, if we can, to, that's exactly right, Main North. That's where we are. And Main North has got some hippopotami, which I'm now going to try and sort of pan around. And you can see, gathering on the banks, absolutely nothing, which is quite interesting. So what it shows is that the animals do not seem to be massing at this time of the day. Now, you want to know my opinion on the largest bird in the bush. I would agree entirely with Taylor's assessment of it being herself. I think that she's pretty loud. I don't think that Ali comes anywhere close at all. Taylor you can hear coming from Buffelshoek Dam when you're at Chitwa Dam. In terms of real birds as opposed to Taylor, I would say the most powerful, I think the hardy-dar is the loudest. It is certainly the most mind-numbing. And if you have a hardy-dar sitting above your bed, ooh, there's some playing hippopotami, that's quite fun, just before they get out of the water. That's great. That's a young bull, I think. That's cool. They're going to come out the water, I think. If you've got one sitting above your roof, as I've said, after a heavy night out, and you wake up with that, well, shall we say, dry-mouthed feeling with a throbbing head, well, a hardy-dar squealing on top of the roof is a very painful thing indeed. I, of course, have not experienced that for many years. So I'm going to go with hardy-dar. Ha! 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 There we are. I got 10 out of 10 from Kirsten for that. It's lucky. Now let's go back into these chaps and see what they're doing. These are not night cameras. They're not adapted for the night like the Djuma cam, for example. So there is a bit of good ambient light out at the moment. So we'll just enjoy these hippos for a little while. Hello Mr. P, you're all the way in Canada and wondering if people in Africa are eating hippos. I imagine that there are some people right now as we speak in Africa's population of some 1 billion eating hippopotamus meat. It is edible. It is not a delicacy, I don't think. Apparently it's not very nice. I've never eaten it. Brent Leo Smith, who's eaten most creatures in the world, says that it is not the best. But I think he says it's quite nice if it's cooked properly. I guess that goes for any meat. But it's not a sort of sought-after delicacy, no. But if it can be got by, especially people in these areas, you know, if a hippo drops dead somewhere along the way at night, then it will most certainly be eaten. But remember, in terms of poaching, a hippo is almost impossible to catch, of course, because they're very unfriendly generally, and it's very difficult to make any kind of a snare that would catch one. So while you can hunt them with a rifle, if you happen to be so insanely bent, well then that's fine. They're very easy to shoot. They're not dangerous to shoot because you shoot them in the water, I guess. But to hunt them with anything other than that, especially if they're out of the water, is a different prospect entirely. So I don't think they get eaten much at all, no. It was a wonderful little pod. They're having the best time. Waking up just before they go out to meal time. Little one playing with mum there. Lisa, you say, can't we call this thing Hippo Corner, perhaps a better name than Main North? I agree with you, it's a better name than Main North, but no, we're not going to change the name simply because it has been named by, of course, the Mara Triangle, and so we're not going to change the names of these crossings. We want to stick with the names that have been used by the authorities of the area for a long time. Isn't that fun? This is all, oh, don't stop. This is great play fighting. This is fantastic. My best sighting of the day by a country mile. Sylvia, you say, is this group called a pod or a raft? Are they both correct? They are both correct, but they're also, like with most of these fun collective nouns, they're not biological terms. So you'd find that maybe in a biological textbook you might read the term pod or raft, but most likely you would just see, well, you'd probably see the word herd. Herd tends to be the word used for most of these things. So pod or raft you can use. I've heard school before. I've heard, I don't know, I think Brent's got a nice one. Brent uses the term a harumph of hippos, which is quite fun. And if we could have any sound out of this camera, you'd be hearing them harumphing as we speak. Oh, they're having the best time. They're very close by to each other, I must say. They don't, oh, look, one's on its backside. Its little leg sticking out of the water. It always amuses me when that happens. They obviously don't have a huge appreciation of personal space. Dina, you say, do they bite each other's tails in play? I don't know, Dina. I suspect we should probably watch. I've never seen it myself, but of course I don't have a huge amount of experience with hippopotami playing like this. It's normally at a distance, you know, in a dam. You don't get to watch it unfettered like this. Look at that. Isn't that just fantastic? I'm not sure why. Sorry, it's just zooming out on of its own accord. H. Macy, you're wondering if hippos spend their lives in the pods to which they're born. I think the females could, possibly. I doubt it's all of their lives. I suspect it'll change once or twice, depending on the age of the bull in which they're born to. But I think you'll find that the females will stay for quite a long time. and then possibly go off and join a younger bull's pod or a more mature, more dominant bull's pod when the time comes. But the bulls definitely leave as soon as they reach sexual maturity, which is, of course, a standard issue thing for most male animals born into a group. As soon as they reach puberty or sexual maturity, they're chased out by more mature males. That goes for lions, it goes for hippopotamus, it goes for any male-dominated sort of society. Well, Stevie, that's an interesting question. I'm going to say no. You say, do hippopotamus regrow their teeth if they fall out? No, I don't think they do. I don't know of any mammals that regrow their teeth after they fall out. We know that sharks do, of course. Sharks replace their teeth. We know that reptiles do, or certainly that crocodiles replace their teeth. I don't know of a mammal that, if it loses its permanent tooth, will replace it. Of course, elephants do replace their teeth, but that's kind of not in response to losing them. It's just a sort of thing that happens over their lives. They get 7 sets of teeth. It's wonderful. Look at the feet in the air there. See what the other bunch are up to. Hello, Donald. You have a question, and your question is, do hippos drown ever? Is there a record of it? I'm sure there must be a record of it, especially if they're fighting in particularly... Oh, so this thing is developing a mind of its own. That's, of course, me blaming my tools. There must be a record of it. I don't know of one. That really isn't me. No, I promise you, everybody, I'm not touching the camera. There we are. Come on now. That's it. Little kingfisher flying past there. So, Donald, as you know, they're not very good at actually floating. So if they get into deep water around the Okavango, perhaps they get nervous or exhausted, then I imagine they could possibly drown. But I think in a river like this it would be highly unlikely, unless they were severely injured, perhaps in a fight, and were then unable to move. This is a great hippo sighting. They're having wonderful playtime. The river is pretty full, I think it's fuller than it was 2 days ago. I think there's been rain up in the catchment area, and it's come down this way. Now, Geeky Beth, you're wondering which crossing has the deepest point. I think you'll find that the picnic crossing, which we don't have a camera at, has the most, or has the deepest crossings, or deepest river, because it's the most narrow. And it's just downstream where I'm pointing the camera now. It's just down there. It's very narrow there, and then, oh, look at that feet, those feet up in the air. The narrower the river is, the deeper it is. Of the ones we see, there's quite deep water at cul-de-sac crossing in various places, and I think the animals try to avoid that deep water, because as I've said before, the ability to push off the ground makes a massive difference if you're trying to avoid being eaten by a crocodile. And let's face it, who doesn't want to avoid being eaten by a crocodile? Lisa, you want to know what I think the water temperature is? Lisa, I'd say the water temperature is probably, I'm going to say pretty warm at about 24 degrees Celsius or so, about 75 Fahrenheit. I think it's pretty warm. It certainly doesn't come from snow melt, so I think you'll find that it's warm. We're having a great time there. Settling down, and eventually, of course, they'll get out of the water and go grazing. Now, I wonder if we shouldn't just pop quickly across to the other cameras just to have a look-see. That is Main's Xiao. Oh, beautiful. That's the escarpment in the background. And you can see not a mammal in sight trying to think about crossing. Now we're at Dusty Crossing. And likewise, I imagine we'll probably find one or two hippo down the way. Yeah, there are a whole lot of hippo down there. Let me go down there. They're doing exactly the same as the hippo we've been looking at, having a play. Whoops, the daisies. And look at all the swallows and martins coming swooping down and having a drink. Sometimes they're not always eating insects, and in fact, if you watch them carefully, you might just be able to see them dipping and actually touching the surface of the water, taking a little bit of an evening tipple, if you like. And a very subtle picture there of the pink from the sky just reflecting off the water. That is the most peaceful scene we've managed to find for you all day long. Isn't that gorgeous? I'm staring at it feeling very happy as that hippo opens its mouth. And you can see the wind there has dropped down below, starting to blow up top here. So, Sylvia, you're wondering if hippos have to look after their babies, stop them being devoured by crocodiles. Yes, they do. They absolutely do, and they do a very good job of it. An adult hippopotamus is really a terrifying thing for a crocodile. And you'll find that big adult hippo are not vaguely afraid of crocs. It's quite the other way around. But a crocodile will take a baby hippo if it can. A crocodile will take anything to eat if it can. This is just too special. I don't even want to move the camera with all those birds flitting in between and out. I'll be catching the odd insect, I suppose, but it's mainly the evening drink that they're after. You must understand as you watch them fly, the energy required to do what they do is astonishing. So the number of flying insects they eat is equally astonishing. And therefore the number of flying insects that they would be landing on our skin without them is quite phenomenal. Likewise the bats, which will soon be joining this aerial evening party. And then the other thing to note is how quickly they change direction. And where a human being and a fighter pilot can probably tolerate, and I'm guessing here, but it's around about 11 Gs. So that's 11 times the G-force that you're feeling sitting right now. You're feeling 1 G sitting in your chair right now. It's 11 times that. I know that's very difficult to imagine, but it's, let's say it's 3 or 4 times what you'd feel on a roller coaster going upside down. What you find with these swallows is that their brains experience probably 14 or 15 Gs, and yet they're able to cope because the speed at which they change direction is just astonishing. Hello, punk and rock music, you say, do these birds migrate? Some of them do. I think these are the winter residents, though. You'll find that the barn swallow probably passes over this area on its way back south. They'll begin their journey only sort of September time to head back towards South Africa. They'll stop over this area. Remember, we're sitting, look at that hippopotamus, looks like it's trying to catch a swallow. Remember that we're sitting in an area here that is pretty much on the equator, and so very few birds have to get out of here for food. Whereas you can see the landscape around where Taylor is, well, it's devoid of a lot of vegetation. It means that there's not a great deal of insect life, which means that insect-eating birds must move away. I'm going to continue sitting at what I just think is one of the most beautiful scenes I've seen since I've got to the Mara. While we do that, let's head back to the winterscape of Djuma.
So we're bumbling about, and at this time I was hoping to be sitting with Nguma Pride, but it seems as though my dreams are not going to come true this afternoon. I just bumped into Louis, who is also an Elephant Plains guide, and he said to me that sadly the Nguma Pride is still fast asleep and haven't really shown any signs of waking up just yet, but they really aren't far off of the road. From where Craig was sitting, he said he could see the odd flash, obviously from a camera, and it wasn't far at all. And I know we're sadly running out of time, but Taxon's also, it sounds like he's going to come down this way and have a look down in the western corner, and maybe, just maybe, we get lucky and we catch them walking across the road. But for now, I thought we'd do a little detour. I thought that we would quickly come and check around here in these guarri trees for some chameleons, and then we'll go back along the Power Lines Road back towards Triple M, and we'll do one last little drive-by, which I'm hoping will be successful. That would be really nice. I think a great way to have a nice up-close sighting of lions. I don't know if any of you may have seen that. It happened very quickly, but there was a scrub hare that ran out on the road and then decided, no, I'm not going that way, I'm going back the other side. Whoop. Now, Adele and Natalie, you're wondering, how old was I when I realized that I wanted to work with animals? Well, I first wanted to be a policewoman, and then a firefighter, and then a paleontologist. So I suppose that started with bones and dinosaurs and things like that. So from very young, I was only a couple of years old, and then we obviously have been going on safari my entire life since I was in, we say nappies, but diapers is what most of you from the States and from the rest of the parts of the world might say diapers as well. So I've been going on safari for a very long time, so I always knew that I loved animals. I wanted to be a vet then as well, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And I think I made the decision when I was in high school, when I said, right, I think I want to become a guide. I think that would be quite nice. And after going on safari at lots of different private places, I was like, yeah, I could do this every single day. And then I actually was going to head off to Australia to study equine dentistry, to be a horse dentist. And I then decided, no, I'm doing the guiding thing. Let's do the guiding thing. And I think my dad thought it was just going to be a phase, and I was going to go out and get a proper job. This is a proper job. But back then when I started guiding, which wasn't very long ago, almost 6 years ago now, and it wasn't that big of a career for women. So maybe that's why my dad was hoping that I was going to choose a different line of work. But anyways, here we are, still in the bush, and the only time I think that I'll leave the bush is if the animals all disappear, and I hope that that never happens. I don't want to live in a city. I think I would maybe have to be institutionalized if I have to live in a city. The sounds, it's way too loud. I always complain when I go home about how loud everything is. The sound of a siren is actually unbearable for me. It makes me want to put my hands over my ears and curl up into a little ball. And the sound of traffic and all those things that you don't get to hear out here in the bush, it's amazing how sort of super sensitive your hearing becomes living out in such quiet places. Obviously we have different noises. We've got things like lions and leopards and hyenas that people that live out in the bush can actually sleep through, and then the city folk that come up here, they find those noises very distracting. So I suppose it just depends where you are and you get used to those different sounds. But yes, no, the bush is a fantastic place. It's not for everybody. And that's what one thing people need to remember, especially when coming into this industry. It's really is a demanding job in terms of the various places that you work for. They need you there. You work long hours, you miss out on Christmases and Easters and birthdays. What's a birthday? And family occasions and weddings and things like that. So I suppose that's maybe the negative side of it. Otherwise, living out in the bush is pretty spectacular. Great food, great company, awesome office. Of course, none of you will disagree with that. But I think that we should go across and find out when James decided that he wanted to work in the bush.
Here we have the hippo again, everybody. I decided I wanted to work in the bush when I was very young. Well, all I decided, of course, and many of you will know the story, is that I wanted to live in a beautiful place. The thought of guiding people did not occur to me until I, by mistake, found myself, which is a long story, on a guide training course, which then made me into a guide of sorts. But I'm afraid my personality, unlike that of Taylor's and Scott's and Brent's, and to a certain extent Jamie's, does not extend or does not really lend itself to guiding. I'm a little unpleasant, you see. There we have lovely pictures of these hippos. I will tell you that my first foray into the world of hospitality, as that hippo dunks itself there, was as a waiter at a steakhouse chain. This was an employment that lasted 3 weeks, I think it was, before I was accused by a patron of being surly, sarcastic, and deeply unpleasant, which I'm sure will shock and surprise all of you who know me to be sweet, gentle, and concerned. Now, punk and rock music, back to the biology. You say, do hippopotamus eat fish? They do not eat fish. They are herbivorous. Well, you know what? I mean, I say that. They are known sometimes to sample carrion, especially from kills that are sort of left by crocodiles floating in the water, especially in migration time. They've been known to do that. I therefore must ask the question as to whether, if they don't do that, why on earth don't they eat fish sometimes? I think they probably do eat fish from time to time, but it's probably by mistake. So, yeah, I'm not sure if they eat fish, and the only way to tell, which of course the apocryphal story is that God said that the hippo could live in the water if they didn't eat fish, and of course the way that he tells whether they eat fish or not is to make them spread their dung about, which of course they do. And I, employing the same method as the maker of the hippo, have never found any fish bones in the hippo's dung. So I'm not sure if they ever eat fish. I imagine some must have. Let's quickly go back to Dusty Crossing, where I think the most beautiful scene is still playing out there. You can see the pink has faded to blue. And I'm hoping that eventually one of these hippo will get out of the water, but I don't think it's going to. No, but look at the swallow still swooping about. Oh, it's just magnificent. All right, let's head back to Taylor, say goodbye to her, and I will see you at the end of the show.
Or maybe not, I don't know. Now, I don't know if the lions are coming this way, but I see cars and I see spotlights.
So Taylor unfortunately disappeared there. Sorry about that. Let's go. Oh, look, we're just looking at the last scenes of these hippo disappearing. Let me try and zoom in a little bit. The zooming is a little difficult in the dark because the camera tends to lose focus because it doesn't know what it's looking at. Oh, it's just so special. Hey? I hope that you're sitting with the favourite tipple of your choice, watching this, inhaling, and I can tell you that the sound of the river is lovely, the sound of the hippo going it's very peaceful. You'll hear the birds calling to each other, the odd flop, I suppose, as a fish comes to the surface and goes down, and then of course you'll also hear a whole lot in the way of crickets starting to call, and the smell of this place is unique, of course, to all in this area smell slightly different. Let's go back to Main North, where there are two youngsters porpoising about. There they go. Look at them, just having the best time. I wonder why they're so much more active than the ones sitting where we were looking at Dusty Crossing. I guess it's just two youngsters horsing about. Not very reflective youngsters. They've done their homework, or they haven't, I suppose. Perhaps they haven't done their homework, and they'll be in trouble later. Strawhead, you apparently having a cup of tea right now with milk and 2 sugars. Well, Strawhead, I hope it's very delicious, and I hope that it is filling you with a sense of comfort bodily that I hope the scene is giving you mindfully. I must say, I could sit and watch this for hours, especially the one with the birds swooping to and around the place. That's just the best. Look at those birds. And of course it's the smell living out here that so attracts me to living in wilderness areas. And I love that. I mean, Taylor was showing you the fires today. That smell to me just takes me into August. July is always a little bit early for me to smell it, but when I start to smell it in August, it's the smell of the first sort of hints that the winter is coming to an end. And so I love the smell of burning grass in August. And we've got 2 minutes left to appreciate the scene of the yawning hippos. And I'll tell you that the smell down there is of water. You can definitely smell water. You can smell grass. You know that sort of strawy smell, you can smell that, but also because there's so much fresh grass, you can smell fresh cut grass smell mixed in. There's a little bit of dust, but not a huge amount in this area. We've had quite a lot of rain of late. And then when you drive up the road that I was showing you that Scott was on, you can smell the soil. There's real fertility in the soil here. And then you get into the forests just before you hit the Ololodo escarpment. And there, it just smells like humus, and that's not hummus, it is humus, which of course is organic, rotting organic material, and it just smells like fertility, and it's wonderful. The variation is just fantastic. All right, we've got 1 minute left. I'm going to try a little bit of zoom before this camera shuts itself off immediately. Now tomorrow morning I think we'll be coming to you from normal time, so it will be at 7:30. That is Central African time, 6:30 Central African time, 7:30 East African time. You can work out what time of the day that is with you. Not sure who's going to be on safari. We'll figure that out during the night and see you then. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for your questions and comments. We will hopefully catch up with you in the morning. If not, it will be the afternoon. Until then, stay safe and happy wherever you happen to be in the world. Bye-bye.